different. All right, wait. We should actually start.
Yeah, let's just get into it.
Just get into it.
Just
All
get
right.
into it.
So we're here today, ladies and gentlemen, to talk about the episode we've all been waiting to do. We are talking about the episode from February 25th, 1994. Arsenio Hall, Luis Farrakhan. Is that how you say his name? Luis Farrakhan. Yeah. Louis Farrakhan interview that a lot of people debated ended the show. And so we are actually about at the end of this podcast because the Arsenio Hall show recap is almost done. I'm your host. I'm Justin. With me as always is Aaron.
Aaron.
Say hello.
Hello.
Yeah. Aaron, it was your passion for the Arsenio Hall show that really got this podcast going and these thousands of followers. What do you want to say to the audience now that we're at the end?
I'm just happy they stuck along for the ride. It's been long in the works. We've had a lot of great interviews. Eddie Murphy, that was a good one when he had him on his show. Prince,
yeah,
that was a big one.
The Bill Clinton
don't
episode
forget
was
Bill
a classic.
Clinton playing the sax.
Yeah.
Probably one of the biggest things that's ever happened. And just all over the excitement that would come from the audience with the woo woo
Woo, woo, woo.
woo.
Yep.
Yeah, you can't see my arm,
Yes.
audience, but it's twirling.
Both of our arms are twirling, just as they always are when we do this show.
But it's a good thing we're ending
Now,
it,
a lot of
'cause
people...
I just got a cease and desist letter from another podcast that's actually been in the works a little longer than ours, and they've been covering the Arsenio Hall show. And
Are you
also
talking about the
new
Arsenio
version
Hall
of it.
show?
Yes, the original show. Oh, that's what their podcast is called, Arsenio's show.
Yeah.
Arsenio
The Arsenio Hall show.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your show of shows. God damn.
They have been
this is going on a
threatening
while.
legal action this entire time.
Yeah, but we made it
And
through.
I'm glad that we've made it.
And
Yeah.
now I have to
we
delete
did.
all these.
So let's get this recorded and up before the lawsuits come. So
This
a lot
is
of
not a
people say
bad
that
idea,
this
though.
episode...
We could move on to other famed talk shows like the Chevy Chase show that was on for like 4 glorious weeks or something.
We
Various
could.
other ones. I was up late at night once back in, let's say, 99, and I saw goddamn, I can't remember his name. He was the red-haired kid from the Partridge Family. Do you know who I'm talking about? The little kid. And he grew up,
Just
obviously.
vaguely.
His name is Danny something.
Yeah.
It's got like an Italian, Danny Bonaducci
Mathers?
or something like that. But
Oh.
he made a pilot episode for his show, and they aired it at like 3 a.m. on Fox, maybe, or whatever local affiliate I was watching at the time of Fox. And it was awful. It was just him, and he came out and he was doing his stand-up, and then he had the only guest they had was like this ninja master. So this guy just came on and taught him some ninja moves. And it just made me think that like so many people have tried to get the talk show thing going, and so many fail. And Arsenio was one that really made it work for a little while, at least.
Yeah.
That's
I'm
all I
going to
got.
miss talking about him, but I like the idea of moving on to a different, shorter run celebrity show. Audience, if you have any ideas for what we should cover next, go on Twitter, the Arsenio Hall show, and let us know what you think. But anyway,
No,
let's get into
that's
the meat
the
and
other
potatoes of this
show,
episode.
the Arsenio Hall show.
Oh, shit.
God damn it. This whole
Anyway,
thing this is a mess. People are going to tune
Let's
in
get
and
into-
tune out immediately. What are they talking
That's
about?
not true, because it's
not
really important that we talk about this.
It's true.
It's
That's
very
true.
important. Because they'll see the title when they click the podcast, and
I
they'll
would
get
hope
to
so.
where we're going with this.
my
yeah.
God.
So a lot of people say that this ended the Arsenio Hall show. This interview.
The Louis Farrakhan interview.
Yes.
Not familiar, but he is a polarizing figure because of his
anti-Semitic
yes
beliefs. He was one of those that like to blame the Jews for everything, and
Yes.
people basically said that Arsenio went pretty weak on him.
I see.
And I'm only bringing this up because, well, for the purpose of the real podcast, we have this question that we've always that's one question came to us after watching these movies, and we are talking about Coming to America. This is Aaron and Justin Talk Sequels. I'm Justin.
I'm Aaron.
There you go. And,
it's only 5 minutes
watching
of the podcast, and you finally get
watching Coming to America. We really noticed that Arsenio Hall is amazing and that we love him. And why the hell has he not been a big movie star?
Yeah, he's now been added to my list, which only had one other person on it, of people that we missed out on being movie stars. Number one is Bruce Campbell in the 90s. And now added to that is Arsenio Hall, because we both thought that he was one of the best part of Coming to America, and then the sequel, Coming to America.
Yes.
That has
we
the same
are
title.
Covering a sequel with the same title as the original. And that's a little weird.
Yeah. But he was good, and he's good in them.
He's only really well known for his show, the Arsenio Hall Show. A lot of people said that... Sorry,
no. I was going to let you finish.
A lot of people said that this interview with Louis Farrakhan ended the show, but Arsenio has never agreed with that, and he basically stepped away to raise his family. And now his child is an adult, and he's decided to get back into acting.
Okay. Well,
and so
I
couldn't
think
find anything else on it.
After Coming to America, maybe he had a couple other short-lived roles, and he's in that. I'm not really sure. But I think he did nothing. But didn't the show, wasn't that like maybe 89? Was it late 80s when it started?
Yeah, the show started after Coming to America.
Like what year?
And I think Coming to America was 88.
Yeah.
And the Arsenio Hall show
might have been 90s.
Was from...
But I feel
it
like
ended
like
in 94. Okay. 89 to 94.
Yeah, so there you go. So we did. I think it's hard to pass up that sweet talk show money and having a steady job in the entertainment industry. You want to give it a shot. And I think getting a talk show is, for a lot of comedians, is just like getting a long running sitcom. It's kind of like gold. If you can get that, that's pretty good. But also I
get that.
He was unique. Like nobody was like him. Nobody had a talk show like Arsenio Hall. I mean, he was a black guy. He was on Fox, and Fox was new. Fox had The Simpsons, and they were really starting out to kind of become a presence. Like they weren't. I think you had the big three with ABC, CBS, and NBC. And here's Fox being like, "We're going to be the big four now," and they're all like, "Nah, you're just Fox. You're not really going to be taken seriously." So I think Arsenio Hall's show was a big part of making Fox serious as well, and it had an edge because it was a different kind of talk show. But I feel like it just petered out.
Like the pressure of Letterman and Leno was eating away at the ratings.
Also,
do you know
like
those
like CBS, NBC, ABC, they had a legacy of those talk shows, and I think it was just Fox didn't have any experience with having a legacy of a talk show, so that's why I felt like it felt like more of a flash in a pan. That went on for a couple of years, admittedly, but then it just kind of petered out.
Now, Fox, it launched its late show in 1986, and this was the precursor before the Arsenio Hall show.
Oh, really?
Do you know who the host was?
I have no idea.
Joan Rivers.
Really? Interesting.
Yep, and that was from October to May, and then I believe the story is they couldn't handle Joan anymore. And so a bunch of people guest hosted for about a year, and then after that it was revamped into the Arsenio Hall show.
Well, see,
and
I give him credit. There's Fox trying to break the standard and giving a woman the late night talk show slot. That's pretty good. They were trying things.
Though they were trying stuff. Like
they couldn't stand her.
Fox in the early days.
That's funny.
Yeah. That's what I think I read. If I'm wrong, tweet at us at the Arsenio Hall show.
That's not
somebody needs to make that
podcast.
Twitter.
That's the other one. Ours is Our Date with Arsenio, a
so my biggest
podcast. I don't know.
I'm sorry.
No, dinner. I was thinking dinner. My dinner with Andre. Isn't that what I was thinking of? So
dinner with Arsenio.
My dinner with Arsenio.
Yeah, that's a pretty good title for an
retrospective.
Arsenio Hall show.
Anyway.
Yeah.
What the heck? What are you talking about?
I was trying to fill in the gaps. Like, people say they take time off for their family. And usually I feel like that's code for I'm really rich now and I don't have to work. Yeah, but not a crazy net worth. He's estimated at a net worth of $16 million, which is, you could definitely live off of that.
Oh,
but I think he's still living in
could
Burbank.
not. I live a very expensive lifestyle. That wouldn't cut it.
Yeah. I mean, two different people completely.
Yeah. Well,
Anyway.
are you familiar that he brought the talk show back maybe five or 6 years ago?
I think it was 2013.
Yeah.
Yep. It only.
Yeah.
It didn't last
I
long.
tuned in because I always liked him, and I was like, oh, this is a blast from the past. And I'd say the first 20 minutes when he was giving his monologue was some of the most painful comedy I've ever witnessed. It just was not. It was like prop comedy. He was saying, well, what's happened since we've been off the air in '94? And so he was like pulling things out of a bin that from the '90s. So like, look, it's a floppy disk, everyone. Remember floppy disks? And then he put it down, and I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, AOL. Remember they'd send this to you every week. I got like 70 of these, and then I'm like, what are you doing? Arsenio's strong suit was definitely the interviews, and it was like, just get to that. But even on the newer one, I think he had like Chris Rock on and Eddie Murphy and Prince, which is huge because Prince doesn't do talk shows, but they're friends. So he's able to get Prince on, and that was a big thing. It was like maybe a year or two before he died. Anyway, that didn't last. There's just no space for Arsenio Hall anymore as a talk show host, which is unfortunate. But you're right. He should have been a movie star. He should have, I don't know, he should have done the show. I mean, I think it was pretty revolutionary to have the Arsenio Hall show, I would say. So that's probably an important part. But after it ended, if you got to go take care of your kids, I get that. But yeah, he should have tried to be a movie star. I don't know if you could. I don't know if you can pivot to that afterwards. Could you see like Jimmy Fallon saying he's going to end this Tonight Show run and then go be a movie star? I don't think it happened.
That's something I was thinking about too. Yeah, you don't see a lot of late show hosts become big movie stars.
Because I think like Craig Kilborn may have wanted to, and that didn't work out. Remember Craig Kilborn from The Daily Show? No, not The Daily Show. Was he on The Daily Show? No, he wasn't on The Daily Show.
No.
He had his own show, The Late Show, didn't he?
Yeah, he was on after Letterman.
And then Ferguson, right? Didn't he take over, the guy from Drew Carey's show?
Oh, I forgot about Kilborn. I was thinking of Ferguson.
Yeah, and then
He's
Ferguson
funny.
left. But I don't know if he went to be a movie star again, but I think he tried, maybe. I don't know. And that didn't work out.
Yeah.
And Letterman was a cabin boy, and that didn't work out. Do you remember Cabin Boy?
Yes, that did not.
Jay Leno was in a Detroit shot movie with Pat Morita, the ninja master or the kung fu master from Karate Kid, called Collision Course. Did you ever see that movie?
I had never seen it, but he was like a cop, wasn't he? I feel like I've seen the poster.
Yep.
Yeah.
Famous VHS cover. Yeah, that was before he got the Tonight Show. But still, Jay Leno trying to be an action comedian would have been pretty awesome if we followed that. This is what Loki should be about. Loki should go back and turn unlikely Hollywood stars in the 80s and 90s into leading men and women just to see what happens. And the first episode should be him going back to the set of Collision Course with Jay Leno and Pat Morita and helping Jay Leno become a movie star. And now where would we be? This is what I want to see.
Like that, yeah, that's an episode of Sliders where instead of Leno, Seinfeld got the job.
Oh my God, yeah.
And
how weird.
And we just completely lose the show completely.
See, like these things happen. Like Gary Shandling was heavily favored to take over for Letterman, I think. But he may have also, because I think he guest hosted The Tonight Show a number of times. So he was also maybe up for that job. And he didn't get it, so he then went on to create The Larry Sanders Show, which is one of the best shows of all time. So just think if he had gotten the job, we would have never had that show.
Yeah.
What a world.
Yeah, but the thing that makes me think that Loki, we were talking about Loki before we started recording, everyone.
Oh, that's right, we were recording.
The thing about Loki is that What If is coming out on Marvel Plus or Disney Plus too. And so it makes me think that it won't be as fun in multiversy because we're going to get a lot of those what if stories in the animated
I'm
realm.
a little disappointed that it's animated, though. And I like animated, but it makes it feel not part of the Marvel universe if it's animated. It just feels like another one of those Marvel movies that they just put out animated and nobody watches but kids.
And I think the real reason that it had to be animated was that it's not feasible to get a what if Iron Man story or a what if Thor story unless it's animated.
True.
Well,
we're
here
Should
today.
we do our 20 minutes on the original and then move on from there?
Let's do that. So, Coming to America, did this is going to turn into an immediate tangent. What modern movie did Coming to America remind you of? If it reminded you of one at all.
Reminded me that Zamunda was the original Wakanda.
Yes!
Is that funny?
There are very strong Black Panther vibes in this
totally.
movie. And I give a lot of credit to Eddie Murphy. He was really the architect of this movie. It was his story. Mm-hmm. He handpicked John Landis to direct it. Eddie Murphy was a great actor in the 80s for boosting up the Black community. Mm-hmm. He really made a lot of empowered Black films, and this was in that run where he just used his giant movie star persona to really highlight a lot of unknowns and to bring in a lot of good oldies. And that's, we've covered Landis before, a very problematic person, but it's a lot of themes that we saw in previous movies of his as well. And so I think it was a good pairing, even though they totally fell out with this movie. Did you see that little blurb?
I read it sounded like they didn't get along very well on Trading Places, which was a couple years prior. Because Murphy said that Landis treated him like a kid, and he said, "Yeah, I was a kid at that time, but now I'm a movie star, and he's still treating me like a kid." But he said he felt bad at the whole Twilight Zone trial that Landis had gone through. That's another big issue. And he also said that he was feeling bad for Landis because he didn't have success at that time, like he wasn't doing well. But I don't know what he would have been talking about, because I feel like every 80s movie Landis made was a hit. But then
doing it for an old friend, did you see the deal
along.
He gave him?
No.
Landis got paid $600,000, so not a lot up front, but he got 10% of the gross receipts.
That's pretty good.
Or something like that. It was crazy good.
Well, he was an in-demand director, so that doesn't surprise me.
His previous two films were Three Amigos and Amazon Women on the Moon.
Oh, yeah. Three Amigos may be more of a cult hit. Maybe it wasn't that popular when it came out. But the Amazon
Women,
what I'm guessing. That's gone.
I've never heard of it.
The waistband, the waistband of history, of cinema history. Maybe it's funny.
And they actually reteamed for Beverly Hills Cop 3.
Yes.
And so no matter what crap that he was talking, they still kept working together. Yeah. So it's interesting.
Eddie Murphy seems like he says some shit sometimes.
Yeah, Eddie Murphy he has that strong vibe of he doesn't go anywhere without four guys with him that always make him feel better about himself.
Right.
Like he needs that movie star treatment that you see jokingly. It makes me think about what's the name of the show with Alec Baldwin and Tracy Morgan?
30 Rock? Yeah, like maybe Tracy Morgan was a very Eddie Murphy
jokey version.
Type. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, just because Chappelle Show. Did you ever watch Chappelle Show? Dave Chappelle, short-lived, like 3-season show on Comedy Central.
It's been so long.
Super funny, but Charlie Murphy is Eddie Murphy's brother, and Charlie Murphy was on that show a lot because him and Chappelle were friends. And Charlie Murphy would just have stories of him hanging out with his brother in the 80s and the wild shit they would do. So yeah, you're spot on. And there's this amazing episode of Chappelle Show where Dave Chappelle plays Prince. There's a lot of Prince talk in this episode. I hope people like Prince. Where Charlie Murphy tells a true story about him and Eddie going over to Prince's house, and it's probably the funniest episode of Chappelle Show. Anyway, if you've ever seen it, it's pretty funny. But yeah, you're spot on in that I think he was maybe one of the original Entourage dudes.
That's just strong vibe I get. But you know what? He's a huge movie star, and he's earned it. And I actually thought that Eddie Murphy had kind of been off the radar when he came out with Dolomite, but God, if he was, it was just for a few years. Like, this guy
definitely worked consistently, but he hasn't done anything that's really stood out. It seems like he does something that stands out every 4 years, maybe, because he was in the Dreamgirls where he had kind of a cameo, maybe not a cameo, a little bigger. But I think they were talking about how he was going to be up for an Academy Award for it. I don't think he was, or was he?
Got the Golden Globe, but
I
don't think there was love from the Academy.
Yeah. And then, then he goes away, and then he comes back, and this and that. You're going to mention Norbit, right? Because a lot of
No,
people
I was
say
going
that's
to.
what killed his Academy Award chances, is that Norbit, the awful movie where he plays an obese woman, came out like right on the heels of the Academy. Like after he does this breakthrough performance in Dreamgirls, out comes this shitty movie called Norbit. And then
Yes.
the Academy's like, we don't want anything to do with him.
Norbit came out in February, and
Yeah.
I think the
Yeah,
Academy
like
was
Oscar
like
month.
March or April. Yeah.
God damn it.
But that I've never seen the clip, but that's the one where Murphy just immediately left the Oscars as soon as he lost. He
Really?
walked out.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
So
I
yeah,
didn't see
it's
Dreamgirls.
like a
I didn't
strong
see it,
vibe.
but-
I didn't see it either.
I always loved Murphy in the 80s because I think he was one of those he was a rare black movie star that could basically tell Hollywood, we're gonna make a movie. I want to make a movie where you're not going to even see a white person for the first 25 minutes of the film. And nobody else in Hollywood would allow that to happen, but they were like, well, he's Eddie Murphy, so we're going to let it happen. So he probably broke through a lot. He broke through things, maybe broke the glass ceiling in a way, as they say, for the way Hollywood may be today.
Yeah. Oh no, he was definitely one of those people. Did you see Harlem Nights?
I think I did years ago, yeah.
Yeah, it's been years for me, but I remember loving it. And
Okay.
this is Eddie Murphy's flex. He talks about how he planned on originally directing Coming to America, but was throwing Landis a bone.
Yep.
He did go ahead and he directed Harlem Nights, which is just, he brought in Richard Pryor, and it's the two of them and the best of the African American stars in it. Wait, here it is. Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor, Red Fox.
Was that after Coming to America, Harlem Nights?
It came out the year after Coming to America. Harlem Nights was really Eddie Murphy at his peak of exercising that control. And that one was a bit more of a flop.
Yeah.
I
and
think
then
it was
he
just a
in
little too serious.
The Golden Child, which I actually remember seeing, and that was okay, but it was a little... Did you ever see Golden Child? I'm not
think
sure
I
on these
did.
years. Everything with Murphy like blends together. I couldn't remember, like, did Coming to America come first, or was Trading Places? And then now that I looked at the filmography, I was like, oh yeah, obviously Trading Places was earlier, and then Coming to America. And then he was in a movie called Boomerang. Yeah. All these movies kind of were around the same time, so I'm never sure on what year, but I just know that a lot of those didn't exactly catch fire.
God, his filmography is insane.
Yeah.
I'm just going to run through it real quick. So we have 48 Hours.
Oh God,
Huge
I
movie.
love 48 Hours. Have you ever seen it?
I don't think I have.
Yeah, it's worth seeing. It's pretty good. They're both just like they swear so much, and they're just assholes in that movie, but it's fun. It's a really raw cop buddy comedy.
That Scott, what's his name?
Tony Scott. No.
No.
What are you saying?
Who's his partner again?
Oh, Nick Nolte.
Nick Nolte, a
Yeah.
guy that I've never really loved ever.
No?
No.
I liked him in 48 Hours, so that's probably why he gets a pass on a lot of things.
Yeah, so maybe I got to check that out for sure.
Yeah.
Directed by Walter Hill,
Yeah,
Who-
there you go.
took a break from his Alien franchise to do stuff. Kind of nice. Then we got Trading Places in '83. Best Defense. I've never heard of that one. Beverly Hills Cop, The Golden Child, Beverly Hills Cop 2, Coming to America, Harlem Nights, Another 48 Hours, Boomerang, The Distinguished Gentleman,
Never saw
Beverly
that.
Hills Cop 3, Vampire in Brooklyn, which
I
I've
always
seen so many times.
I always loved Vampire in Brooklyn. Maybe it was the Wes Craven thing that grabbed me first, because I just thought it
think
was,
it was,
funny to
for me
see
too.
him do a horror comedy, and then Eddie Murphy was in it, and he had like that awesome hair, and he was a vampire, and Angela Bassett's in it, right? And I loved all that. So I loved all that combination. So I remember feeling like I wanted to like it more than I actually did, because I don't think it was that good of a film. But there's something about it that I loved all those pieces.
Like he just kept making all the zombie people like be his
Yeah,
followers. Like it was a
right.
very and next it was The Nutty Professor, Metro, which I've never heard of.
I
Mulan.
like Metro a lot, yeah.
I think Metro's the line, or is it Nutty Professor, where
I
he
think it's Nutty
starts doing a lot
Professor.
of kid stuff. And now we've got Dr. Dolittle,
Mm-hmm.
Holy Man, Life, which is definitely an adult film.
Yep.
That
remember
was
that one.
like one of the most expensive movies made at the time.
I feel like, there's some story about it that I know what you're talking about. And that was by Ted, what's his name?
Ted Demme.
Ted Demme, who's Jonathan Demme's the Silence of the Lambs director. That's his brother. And he made Blow with Johnny Depp after that, which is one of my favorite films. And then he died of like a heart attack, unfortunately. Because I always liked Ted Demme, and I just felt like he was going places. But
Life cost $80 million, and that was probably a lot in 1999 for a comedy.
And that was with Martin Lawrence too, right?
Yep, and it boxed $73 million. And then Bowfinger, which is amazing.
Yeah, I remember seeing that with you in theaters, and I don't know, I just didn't really get it, but I'd have to see it again. Because people I know it's become more of a cult film.
Nutty Professor 2, Shrek, Dr. Dolittle 2, Showtime, The Adventures of Pluto Nash, I Spy.
Showtime was
it kind of really.
Yeah, I never saw it though.
Oh, they're pointing at each other in the posters. Like, look at this guy. Everybody should go and look at the Showtime poster. It's important. Anyway, so yeah, Eddie
Shrek
Murphy
made everyone a bajillionaire that was involved with that. So that's hard to, I think, have that much money and feel like you really need to ever work again. But he did get on. He got on the Disney train.
Million.
Yeah, he got on the Disney train with Mulan, and then that continued with a couple things. We saw the Haunted Museum. Did you see that? It was because they made Pirates of the Caribbean, right, off of the ride, and that became a huge success. So then they were like, oh, let's get Murphy to do the Haunted Museum, which is another Disney ride. And that was okay. It wasn't that great of a film. But I think, a lot of people say, let's get it back to Coming to America, is that Coming to America signaled a problem for Murphy because this is the movie that made Murphy realize he could play every character and didn't really need anybody else. Which worked well in Coming to America because it was like a comedy aside. But then it turned into something bigger with Nutty Professor and Norbit and just his maybe declining quality.
Speaking of the characters that Eddie Murphy plays, and this being the first time that he does it because he's so well known for it now, it brings me back to Arsenio Hall again.
Yeah. Because
Arsenio played multiple characters as well, and he absolutely kept up with Eddie Murphy beat for beat.
Yeah, like, I think he's the part. Him playing other characters, he doesn't get the same respect that Murphy did for this movie. And yeah, I was amazed too, because I definitely seen Coming to America when I was younger, but I hadn't seen it in a long time, so I just forgot exactly what Arsenio did in the movie. And all of his, like, especially the preacher, he's so good.
Yes, like the old Jewish man in the barbershop. I did not know that it was Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, isn't that good?
It was some of the best
makeup, and that's probably Stan Winston. I think the makeup person, even for Coming to America, I believe it was Stan Winston.
That sounds.
And then he brought him back. I think he also did the Nutty Professor, and he was kind of Murphy's go-to guy. I think he also did Norbit, unfortunately.
Anyway,
Stan Winston, he worked on the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park. He's done a lot of crazy stuff. T2, he did the Terminators and stuff off for that.
Yeah, like the name sounds very familiar. Anyway, Coming to America.
Coming to America.
I'm going to try to run through this plot insanely
There's not too much
fast.
to it. This should be pretty easy.
So, Coming to America is a fish out of water story about a prince from Africa who decides to go to America to find his true love.
Bam. There you go. Let's go to the sequel. Yeah. So anyway, sorry.
And that's pretty much it. Now, the one problem I have with this movie and the sequel is that none of the love is earned ever.
Yeah.
Like he met her for a few days and she's down with going to Africa and being a queen.
Yeah. Well, it's a situational comedy in that the situations they get in are humorous, and that's what propels the movie along. But there's not a lot of story that actually goes along with it. That's how I feel about Coming to America. He's Akeem. He's Prince Akeem. His father's James Earl Jones, who's the king of Zamunda, which is a made-up African country.
With strong Wakanda vibes.
With Wakanda vibes, which, to be fair, Wakanda was first, in the comics in the 1960s. So Wakanda had been around. So maybe Murphy was even inspired by Wakanda. I don't know. Maybe he read a lot of Fantastic Four comics and Black Panther comics when he was younger. Who knows? So, but it's a king situation in Zamunda. So they're very... the royalty, it's a beautiful place, beautiful people, they're very modern, and they're very royal. So Akeem is going to be married to another tribe, to a girl from another tribe. They'll join families. He doesn't really want to do this because he wants to find somebody, that old age trope of, I want to marry for love. So James Earl Jones lets him go to America to sow his wild oats. And he thinks just to get it out of his system, and then he'll come back and be the proper king that he wants him to be. He doesn't. I don't think he really expects him to go and find somebody he'll fall in love with in America, of all places.
Yeah, there's some misogyny here. Is that the right word?
Yeah, a
misogyny.
Little bit, I would say so.
Yeah,
but that's hard not to have when you're doing a movie about a monarchy. Everything about a monarchy is just wrong in every way. I hate monarchies. I think it's the stupidest thing. It's one of the most old. It's maybe even worse than religion. I'm not sure, but it's just one of those old-fashioned things that people find amazing still. So, if anything, I think they take the monarchy serious in this movie to its detriment, and that there's some misogyny. But at the same time, this is also Murphy making fun of the whole process as well. So there's a little bit of both.
And they get into Arsenio Hall goes with him to America.
Yep.
And they get into some zany adventures.
Semi is his right-hand man. So they go together. Semi definitely is just like, let's just be king. You should just be prince. Like, you should enjoy this or whatever. Like, America's horrible. It's going to mess us up. But he, goes with them anyways because it's his prince. And they go to, of all places, New York, of course.
Yep.
Queens, because that's where royalty should go, is Queens. And now this is New York in the 80s, which is pretty dilapidated and shitty, and that's part of the joke too. And that they want the real experience, so they get the worst apartment in the worst part of town. They get immediately robbed, all their stuff stolen. But like, Akeem is so positive about the whole experience that he's just like, oh, that's fine, they can take our clothes. This is what New York is all about. I'm happy to be in America.
Yeah, it's adorable. Because he gets a job at a knockoff McDonald's, which is maybe one of the best, most iconic parts of the movie.
It's definitely the part of the movie I remember the most, is McDowell's, which is Johnny Amos's ripoff of McDonald's. And they don't hide it. Like, that's not part of the joke. Like, throughout the movie, you see McDonald's things that he's trying to steal. I don't know how they got around that. Maybe they wanted McDonald's to be part of the movie and they wouldn't allow it. So then that totally was him all right, well, F you. We're going to do it anyways. And then that became part of the movie. I have no idea, but I'd like to think that is what happened.
I like to think that as well, yeah. But yeah, he's just a janitor there, and he thinks it's so fun to be a janitor because he's never had to do that work before, which actually probably would be, but it's besides the point. There's just a lot of fun tropey stuff.
And Mr. McDowell has a daughter. Has two daughters.
Yep. Lisa,
right.
Lisa's
so
wife.
Of course Lisa is the love interest. We know it from the beginning.
Yeah.
Because she's smart,
but
and
little
she
sister.
Little sister.
The little sister totally
she's a little hot for him. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she seemed a little young, so that was a little weird.
Then we've got Daryl.
Yes, Daryl. Eric LaSalle.
Yeah. He was great in ER.
In ER, yeah. And then the last time I saw him was in Logan. Did you see Logan? He was in that movie.
Oh yeah, I saw Logan.
Yeah,
but he was.
That was the last time I saw him. He was the guy that they went. It was the dad, and he had a wife and a kid or whatever, and they were.
Oh, the family that got killed.
Yep, the family that got killed. I had problems with that movie. That movie, it was good, but they just did stupid things. They did real stupid things.
The whole
when let's take a tangent. When he do you remember the bad guy? When he knocks out the bad guy, they just put him in the truck, and he tells his friend Caliban or whatever his name is, just get him out of here. And I'm like, you're not going to tie him up? Obviously, he's going to wake up and take your friend hostage, and that is exactly what happened. That bothered me. I was like, why would you do a stupid thing like that? Why wouldn't you just kill him? You're Wolverine. You kill everybody, right? And then secondly, hey, Professor X, we got to get off the road. Let's go to this family's house. I'm sure they won't suffer for our stupidity. I knew they were going to die. Of course they were going to die, and they were going to get tracked down. So it was like they kept doing stupid thing after stupid thing, and I'm like, this is out of character. This is bad writing. That's what I didn't like about it. But overall, the movie was good.
So I mean, it's definitely in the future.
Yeah.
And it definitely seems like all of the X-Men are probably super dead.
Yeah.
But if Professor X is still alive, it can't be that far into the future. Like, you couldn't have told us anything about how the X-Men died.
I think it's too in the weeds. Like they didn't have time in the movie to get into all that. But I'd say he was like 90s. He was like in his 90s. So it probably was like, I'm guessing 10 or 15 years later. But that's probably about it. I don't think they could do too far ahead or he'd be just too damn old.
Yeah, the cars were just a little futuristic.
Yeah, but I loved that Professor X lose dementia. I thought that was a great take on it, and that it was really messing with his powers. It was really good.
What did you think of the adamantium killing him?
I don't remember exactly how that happened.
He was dying because he was getting old and his healing factor was getting weaker. Yes. And his healing factor is the only thing that kept him alive from the adamantium. And so the adamantium was poisoning him.
Like lead poisoning.
Healing factor. Yeah, it's just an interesting little take that I had never heard before.
Yeah, that's true. So Eric LaSalle was in that movie. That's how we got into this tangent.
As well as Coming to America, playing Lisa's stupid boyfriend.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what the best things about Coming to America to me are. It's number 3. Maybe I can do this in order. Number 3 is Arsenio Hall's Preacher. That's probably my third favorite. The second is Eddie Murphy's old Jewish dude from the barbershop, the white Jewish guy from the barbershop. And the first is the Soul Glow Jerry Curl Cream theme song. I loved hearing it. I thought it was amazing. It made me laugh every time. So that's like Daryl's whole role, is the fact that he's a rich dude that is his father owns Soul Glow, which is what a lot of African American people used in their hair to give it crazy, greasy curls. And even in the 80s, when it was very popular, 70s, 80s, people were making fun of it just as much as people used it. And I think that's what Eddie Murphy loved about it, is that he just thought it was ridiculous. Let's make fun of Jerry Curls and all that shit. So yeah, that's Daryl's part in the movie, is that he's a Jerry Curl guy.
And so I want to just go over Lisa's arc real quick.
Sure.
This is my big issue with the movie. Lisa's in love with a rich man who isn't Daryl the one who doesn't want her to work anymore. So there's obviously some conflicts.
Yep.
But she meets a cute janitor in her dad's restaurant and decides that she likes him. Yeah, that's
because he wants her to be who she is instead of giving up on her feminist ideals to be with Daryl. So then she, surprise, he's actually a prince, but I love him anyways. All right. So she then becomes a princess and gives up her feminist ideals to go live in a monarchy, which will never allow women to be rulers of the country. So Lisa's arc doesn't make a lot of sense. And she ends up basically doing the exact same thing she was afraid of doing with Daryl. She does it with Akeem, but he's a prince. You can't complain. I'm rich. I'm living in a cool country now, whatever. So there's not a lot of lessons to be learned from this movie.
All right, if there is a lesson, it's don't try to be anything other than what, like, she has the same fate whether it's Daryl or Akeem. And
yeah, I know.
So
that's the thing that bothered me about the whole point of the movie, if you want to read into it, which is obviously what we do on this podcast. But if you don't want to read into it and just enjoy it for the McDowell's comedy and the Jerry Curls and Arsenio Hall's Preacher, then it's perfectly a fun little romp.
And my review on Letterboxd basically said the exact same thing. Like, the movie definitely has issues, but it has so much heart, you kind of can't help but love it.
There you go. Yeah. And it modernizes a little bit in that he ends up, because once Simi, what's his name? Arsenio Hall's character. Semi. Once Semi basically spends all the money because he's tired of living like crap in New York. He spends all the money.
He goes native. It's awesome.
Yeah. He has to contact Zamunda and say, I need more money. So James Earl Jones, the king, gets word about what's going on. He realizes Akeem is taking it way more seriously than he thought he would. So he has to come to America. He has to get his son back. But he learns a lesson, and Akeem teaches him that they need to progress. They can't just be this monarchy where you marry who you're supposed to marry. You want to marry for love. So I think he does get that through to his father, and maybe that's a little bit of change. And I think he does generally love Lisa, and I think she actually loves him. But she decides not to go back with him, and then it's a big surprise at the end when she's actually the bride. So somehow she snuck into the country. Everybody was into it. They let her dress up as the bride, but nobody told Akeem until the last moment, and he realized, oh, great, I do get to marry the person I wanted to marry. What do you know? And then they're all a big happy family. It's a very bizarre ending. Doesn't make a lot of sense. There's no good lesson to it. But it's a movie with a strong African-American presence, which is something that only Eddie Murphy could have pulled off probably in the 80s. That's a plus.
Yep.
It's pretty funny here and there. Arsenio Hall is great. And it all works out well for Akeem. So I think it's a good film, and it's not the classic that I would say Trading Places is.
Yeah,
but it's still a pretty fun film.
What's the right way to put it? Like, there's no bad Eddie Murphy movie because Eddie Murphy's great.
Yeah.
No, that's not right. I
mean,
know.
maybe I haven't seen all of his films, so maybe he does suck in some of them where you're just like, God, he really phoned it in. But I don't think so. He's usually a pretty good presence. That makes the movie.
Yeah, he doesn't
worth
seem
watching.
like a phone it in.
Yeah.
And that's actually, I mean, not to just gush about Eddie Murphy, but he is actually a really good actor.
Oh, he's great. Yeah.
He's great.
Yeah.
All right, so
That's what was so
we're done
disappointing
talking-
for the world when he started doing that turn into Family Fare, is that we just thought it was like it wasn't worthy of his talent. Like, everybody knew how good he could be, and it just felt like he was really phoning it in.
Or it was just because he has like 8 kids and he wanted movies for them.
Sure.
That's all.
I mean, and that's totally makes sense. These are his choices, and I wouldn't take it away from him. I can only say so much, but it goes from disappointment to seeing somebody you love in movies do kind of like immature kind of movies, and then it turns into a backlash where you're like angry at him for it, and that's kind of what happens.
Antonio Banderas.
Yeah, maybe him too. Yeah, but he's not. But he's never been as popular as Eddie Murphy, so that's the thing.
Right.
Like,
He's the
what
other
if
one that
Tom
made me think of
Cruise
it.
just started to make kid movies and shit? You'd be angry, and it's the same thing with De Niro. I think a lot of people are angry about De Niro, and then he started doing that, just paycheck movies for some reason. Why did you do that? You don't have to do that. You're De Niro. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say Murphy was on
and-
their level, and that's why.
See, the problem with the Eddie Murphy and De Niro are that they are two of the richest people in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Like, De Niro's worth like 500 million. And so I don't think he does those movies for the money. Like,
But
he just
why
has
does
so
he
much.
do it?
I don't know.
He's gotta
It
get
could be
better
very
offers.
expensive to be De Niro.
It's very strange.
I don't know. Yeah.
Like, he does movies like 50 Cent was in a movie, and he was in that. It was called Righteous Kill, and he was in that movie, and it just wasn't like it. That's the only offer he got in that month. I'm sure he got better offers. I just don't understand why that would be something
maybe
he did.
I need to look this up because that sounds like a paycheck movie if I've ever.
There's plenty of paycheck movies.
Okay,
Like,
yeah, this is
Showtime
totally just
makes sense
paycheck
to
movie.
me because it's like, oh, I can act with Eddie Murphy. That's probably what De Niro's thinking. Oh, the two of us together, this could be gold. Let's do it. Didn't pan out that way. I
Righteous
don't
Kill
think.
was another Pacino De Niro?
Yeah, there you go. Pacino was in it too.
Yeah, like
I
they're
just
the
don't
two
get
big
it.
heads on the cover.
I just don't get it.
I don't know, man.
They're pointless shoot 'em up movies, and there's no reason that either of them should have wasted their time with it when they probably could have got something way more interesting to do from Scorsese. Probably was like, oh, you should have called me. I had a movie you could be in.
I mean, I get
Who knows?
Pacino, like, but
I
I
don't get
De
any of
Niro.
them. I don't get Murphy. But you know what? Enough time goes by, and people just love to see him. And I think that's what takes us to Coming to America, with the word 2 replaced by the number 2 to indicate it's the sequel, which just came out on Amazon Prime, which I guess was supposed to be in theaters, but because of the pandemic, Amazon just kind of bought it outright, or they made it. I think they made it because it said Amazon Studios, but I think they were going to put it in theaters, but then they ended up just directly putting it on the service.
Yeah, it was originally supposed to be distributed in theaters in August. It bought it for 125 million, and that was my big question with all these deals is how they're compensating the people for not going theatrical.
Yeah, how do you handle all that money on the back end, as they say, or the points system that they get based on box office?
With HBO and Netflix and I believe Amazon, they go through and they actually pay everybody involved, but in some cases that's not happening. Like Paramount just shifted a bunch of movies to Paramount Plus, and those people weren't even told, and they weren't paid back-end deals at all.
But if that's in your contract, what do you do?
Yeah, they have to be writing some pretty general contracts over there.
They must. Isn't that funny though? Because say you make a movie and you don't take a fee, you just say I want 2% of profit, and they say okay, and then your movie goes on to make 100 million out of like a 40 million budget, so you get a little money off that. You get 2%, whatever that was. That's happy. But what if that movie catches fire and it makes $1 billion? Then you get a ton of money because you have 2% of that $1 billion. That's a huge amount of money. But if you put it directly to streaming, I think there's none of that. I think you could just get paid for being in the movie and end it. I don't know how that money on the back end ever would materialize.
Yeah, it has to be in deals because like those are subscription numbers, and so there's no actual, like, they have to have a metric where they judge how well a movie does and how valuable it was in terms of subscribers, but it's probably partially a bullshit metric.
Yeah. So there probably is a reason for not putting out Black Widow, say, or other movies that have been done for a year, and people just assume they just put on Disney Plus. Maybe Scarlett Johansson has a deal like that. Maybe she's like, no, I get theater profits, so you got to put it in theaters. So then they're like, oh, you're right.
I think they just didn't want to do any Marvel movies streaming. Like, they didn't want to mess with the brand. But then they changed their minds, and Black Widow's going to be available on Disney Plus.
Yeah, in theaters, same time though, right? Isn't that the idea?
Yeah, right. And it's like the whole, you pay $30 on Disney Plus. So it's a lot clearer where the money comes from in that situation.
So yeah, I'm just thinking like maybe Jamie Foxx just got a straight up paycheck for doing Soul, that Pixar movie, because they didn't do the premiere access. They just put it right on Disney Plus. So there was no theater release whatsoever. But it was Pixar, which is a brand. It's a big brand. You think they'd make money.
I'm pretty sure that beat Wonder Woman at Christmas. Like, that was a big hit.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch it? I never watched it.
I did, yeah. It was good. We talked about it a little bit in one of these podcasts. I was disappointed in the ending. I felt like they just I felt like they were going for that Inside Out magic with that Amy Poehler one that Pixar did. But they just didn't. They've run out of, after 20 movies or so, they've run out of things to really say that's unique. So I felt it was just kind of a ripoff of that movie in a way. It was definitely done in a different way, and that was fun, like the whole jazz part of it. But it just ended with a non-message that I thought people were confused about. I read things online and they were like, oh, it's so amazing that it was really telling you this and that and that. And it's such a great message to hear. And I'm like, it was not saying that. It didn't know what it was saying. What are you talking about? So I wasn't as enthralled about it as most people were.
Kind of off topic, but did you hear the latest rumor about the Spider-Man movie?
No, I have not.
And I 100% believe this rumor is wrong, so I give it no credit. Okay. But they're saying that the main villain is going to be Norman Osborn from the Sam Raimi Spider-Man.
Oh my God. Willem Dafoe?
Yeah, and I don't see it. Like,
I don't know.
I don't see it at all.
Can't they just go out there, and I hope they will, just go out there and try to make a good movie and not try to just make it fan service? Because that's, although I don't believe I'm with you. I don't believe any of this stuff. The only thing I believe is that they brought in Dr. Octopus to cameo briefly, and that's
that is the thing that we know is a fact. And
they brought Jamie Foxx back to play Electro, but I believe it has nothing to do with the original Electro that was in the Amazing Spider-Man film. That's my thought.
I don't know.
I think he just happens to be the same actor, and he's playing the character again, but it's not the same character.
Speculation that I am very interested in is that they say that this movie is going to somehow bridge Sony's Spider-Man universe. I think they're going to play with a multiverse idea here, where I'm guessing at the end of this movie, Peter Parker is going to get knocked and trapped into that universe. That's my wild guess. I'm saying it now because, well, there's two reasons. Number one, we've got what's his name, Michael Keaton, in prison for, what is it, Venom? No, for Morbius.
Yeah,
was that where we saw him?
Yeah, I think in the trailer.
Or was it in Venom? So we've got that guy. And there was somebody saying that Spider-Man was going to fight one of these villains. Like, we're actually going to see him. So anyway, that's my wild
Here's
guess.
What I think is going to happen. I think Spider-Man 3 will be the last Spider-Man Marvel movie. I think Sony's not going to allow him to be used in Marvel anymore. I think that they let Marvel have their fun with him, and he's going to be retired in the same way Captain America and Iron Man have been retired. And then Sony is going to cast a brand new Spider-Man to now be part of their Venom Morbius universe, because Sony can do it on their own now. They don't need, but they can do it on their own again. They did it on their own once with Raimi. It went great. Nobody was interested in the Andrew Garfield version, so they let Marvel have their fun with it and build the character back up in the cinematic universe, and now they can handle it on their own again. That's what I think is going to happen. I think Tom Holland's going to be done after this Spider-Man.
I agree with all of that, except I don't think Tom Holland will be done.
He's done. They're not going to bring him into the Tom Hardy Venom universe.
These Spider-Man movies are Sony productions, like co-productions. And so like Sony has a little bit of say here.
Oh, I think they have a lot of say, but they allow Kevin Feige to make those films the way he feels they should be made in order to fit into the Marvel universe. But that doesn't interest Sony in their own way. So they're going to have a new Spider-Man because they want to start over.
Right, so
you don't want to include all this mess with Tom Holland's Spider-Man into this Venom, Cletus Cassidy, Woody Harrelson thing. It's just a mess. It's a huge mess, and it brings up too many distracting questions, right? So you're going to have a new Spider-Man.
So we're on the
I'm stamping
we completely agree with everything except for that one part. And so we will see where it ends up. This is the record. Don't cut this out.
This is what you do. I won't cut this out. This is what you do. Spider-Man gets too old. You need to take Spider-Man back to being a kid. Tom Holland is already aging out of Spider-Man, especially after you see him in this third movie. You're going to be like, he's not really a high schooler anymore, and they want to make him a high schooler again. Yeah, but not in the movies. He can't be in the movies.
I think
for some reason I don't know.
All by himself is going to be trapped in the Venom universe at the end of this third movie.
I think that's a detriment to Sony's universe of Spider-Man films, that he has to
having Spider-Man in it.
No, that they have to say Marvel's version is better than ours. We need to find a way to pull him in to make us better. They're not going to do that. They're like, we fucking made Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies. None of you assholes would even be here without how awesome those movies were. We know what we're doing. We're Sony. We got our own Spider-Man. We're going to let Marvel have their fun, but we're going to start it over, as we always do. That's what I think. So who's going to be the new
Spider-Man? Do we put
Spider-Man?
money on this? Yeah, do we put money on this bet?
Let's put money on this bet. $5 says
$5, but it has to be exactly right. So
okay.
My
all I'm
$5
say
is
$5 that after Spider-Man 3 with Tom Holland, he's done with the character, and Sony has a new Spider-Man after that. That's what I'm betting on.
And my bet is that at the end of this third movie, Tom Holland is trapped in the Sony Spider-Verse. And that's my guess.
Yeah.
And we will find out. And we will have a follow-up at the appropriate time. So anyway, Coming to America is a movie about a prince in Africa finding love with a woman that he cares about, and he does that. The end of the podcast. It was great. Coming to America is about Eddie Murphy as the king.
He's still Prince when the movie starts because James Earl Jones is still around. So in the movie, we see James Earl Jones actually die. And I actually like how he's like, I want to have a funeral because I want to see you guys enjoy it. So they give him a funeral and he dies at his funeral. That was a nice touch.
Yeah. Is it morbid that they filmed James Earl Jones dying? Because he actually died right there, right? Is he still alive?
He's still alive. I'm sure he's got a couple more Darth Vaders in him because they won't ever let that die.
He is 90 years old.
Mm-hmm. He's up there.
Yes. And then he becomes king. He's doing this thing where he kind of does express a lot of the qualities of James Earl Jones as king, but he's still trying to earn that place. We see a much more matured Akeem in this movie.
Well, it's been 30-some years, and I think the enormity of being king is now on him, so he's defaulting to tradition, and he has 3 beautiful daughters who are all basically training to take over a modern version of Zamunda. And I knew there would be a Wakanda joke in there, and Tracy Morgan says it a little bit in there later in the movie. But it kind of felt a little Black Panther-ish in that they wanted to be this modern society, and these girls are the future. And that's what Akeem needs to realize, because his oldest daughter, he has a lot of respect for, but tradition holds that a woman would never be the true ruler of Zamunda. So Wesley Snipes, who plays an awesome role, he plays the ruler of Nextdoria. I'm sure that was mentioned because his sister, right, is the woman that he was supposed to marry back in the
first movie.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I guess Snipes, as the ruler of Nextdoria, has always held this animosity with Akeem, who's now king. So he's like, you got to make things right. After all these years, you got to make things right, and you have to marry my daughter. Or your son. Wait, how does that go? Like No, I take that back. So he wants him to make it right, but he is basically there to make fun of Akeem because he knows he doesn't have a son, right?
Yeah, it's an issue that he doesn't have a son.
Yeah.
How did they find out that he has a son?
The creepy voodoo witch doctor had a vision of a son in New York, and he gave him a picture, and they believe that to be true immediately, that he had a vision that he actually had a son in New York. And then Semi tells Akeem that, yeah, there actually was a moment you might have forgot you were a little high, that Leslie Jones's character was one of the girls we invited over. And yeah, you guys slept together, and she actually had your son in America. Sorry I didn't remind you of that. It's a weird thing, but that was the only way to make him have a son, I guess, in this fashion that would be born in America. So they had to do the de-aging process with Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall, and it didn't look too bad. It was a little weird, I thought.
I felt like it looked like cutscenes from the first movie.
Yeah?
I thought they did such a good job.
When they did use original scenes in the movie, it did cut pretty well together, I thought. But it had to be the de-aging thing. Like, there's no way they shot some of that stuff.
Maybe they just green screened in Leslie Jones.
Yeah, maybe they did. I don't know. So anyways, he's got a son in America, and this, of course, pisses off his daughter, who's like, well, I was supposed to be the rightful heir, but, oh, well, I got a son, and I don't want to look bad to Nextdoria and Wesley Snipes. I want to prove that I do have a son, and my son will be the new ruler, and then my son will marry your daughter, and then those two ruling families will combine, and everybody will be happy. So Akeem and Semi have to go back to America to find his son.
Very briefly, because this is a reverse fish out of water.
Exactly. I was surprised at how quickly they find his son, who's just some kid, doesn't really have direction in life, but he's got a big family. He's got Tracy Morgan as an uncle. He's got Leslie Jones as his mom. And his name is Jermaine Fowler. Is that it? And he's great.
Yeah, his real name.
He was really good. I had never seen him before, but he was really, really good. I thought he was well cast in this role as Lavelle.
He hasn't been in a ton of stuff, but yeah, he's great. Like, we're going to see him a lot.
Yeah, he's going to be big. Hopefully he will be big, and I think that's what people said about Arsenio Hall. They were like, oh, he's going to be big, and then he only did the TV show and then never did any movies. So hopefully Jermaine doesn't go immediately into doing a talk show and that he has a big career. Because he was good.
He was in Judas and the Black Messiah, which I have not seen yet, but I've heard is great.
Yeah. So they nab him. They tell him, hey, you're the son. You're the rightful heir of Zamunda. And then, like, Leslie Jones had to explain to him, like, oh, yeah, that is your baby daddy, and we got to go to Zamunda now. So then they immediately take him from America, and they go to Zamunda. I was surprised at that. I thought they were going to be in America for longer, but this is really, as you say, a reverse in that they're mostly in Zamunda.
I don't like to ever disparage people. It's not my thing, unless they're really terrible, like
Go for
that
it.
punk from that 70s show. But I find Leslie Jones and Tracy Morgan to be pretty one note. Like, there's not a lot of range with them. I like them for their comedy, but that's about it. And I mean, they fit in here, but it's the exact same character I feel like I've seen in every movie that they're in.
I'm with you in that Tracy Morgan. That's the thing. Did you watch 30 Rock, like, from the beginning, and did you watch it a lot?
Yeah.
He was a very different character in that first season, and maybe a couple seasons.
Yeah.
Like, he was Eddie Murphy. He was portraying that kind of superstar. And then they took a hard left into turning him into an idiot, like a complete dumb, fat idiot. And then that is where they left him the whole time. And I thought it was a real detriment to his character. I thought he was funnier when he was that cool star that he was in the first couple seasons. But then it's like he gained weight and they made him stupid. And then he's been playing that character ever since. And that I do think is unfortunate because I think he's better than just a dumb, funny guy. Anyway, but Leslie Jones, I was actually, yeah, he is. He's good. I love Tracy Morgan. But Leslie Jones, I was actually prepared to not enjoy her in this movie because I didn't enjoy her in Ghostbusters, the reboot, because I just felt it was a lot of improv and it wasn't funny. But I was actually surprised in this movie. I actually liked her because it was improv, but they kept it short. They didn't go too far into it. They stuck with the story. And I think that's a credit to Craig Brewer, is that his name, the director? Because he honed in the obvious improv at times. He didn't let it just run wild. And that, I think, is what made the movie more concise and actually have a story to it. There's not a lot of story to it, but it didn't just go off in tangents and get too wild. And I think that is a detriment that, like, Paul Feig, is that his name, who directed Bridesmaids and he directed the Ghostbusters reboot, where he has a real problem where he just lets his actresses and actors just improv, and then they try to make a movie around it. And that sucks. It only works like one every 5 movies. That's how I feel about it. So anyways, my point is Leslie Jones, actually, I think she was like, I don't know. I thought her funny little scenes were enough in this movie, and I actually liked her in it. What do you think about that, what I was saying about improv in movies?
I really agree with that with Ghostbusters. Like, I feel like you articulated that in a way where, like, if the same cast in the same script was there, but they had a different guy direct them, I think that movie could have been better. That movie always feels like it's just missing. Everything's just not landing just a little.
You have this whole movie cut out in front of you, and somebody should have really said, like, well, you get from point A to point B here, and there's a little funny in the middle, but can we cut out 5 minutes of the funny in the middle because it just kind of is redundant, stupid improv comedy before they get to the point of the scene? And Feig was like, no, that's the goal. That's what people like. See how silly they're being? And I feel like that's in every scene. It's like there's just extraneous, stupid improv that if you just chopped it out, the movie would feel tighter and more enjoyable. But, like, if you did that with Step Brothers, did you ever watch Step Brothers with Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly? Like, that's what it's famous for, is that it's just an idiotic romp, and it's all improv, and somehow it works. So that's great. Like, leave that alone. And, like, the 40-Year-Old Virgin was maybe the similar, and that worked. Like, leave that alone. But then you go on and make, like, 3 or 4 movies in between that, and you try to recapture that magic, and it just sucks. And it's just improv annoyance. And anyway, but I think that's a testament to the director. I think that, and another interesting part is that Eddie Murphy handpicked this director to head this movie up as well. And a lot of people were like, but he's white. Did you know that? Craig Brewer is white, and he's telling this story of coming to America, which a lot of people say is a black film. But Eddie Murphy liked this guy. He also directed the Dolomite movie on Netflix. Yeah. So he was like, no, I like him. I'm going to give him a shot for this movie as well. And I think that the direction pulls the movie together. So I think he did a good job. But yeah, it's a white guy telling a black story. If that gets to some people, if that turns them the wrong way, then I guess they wouldn't watch
that.
The movie,
definitely turns some people the wrong way.
But I was like, whatever. But it's Eddie Murphy's film, and it was his decision, so I'm not going to tell him he's wrong.
Yeah, and this is totally a thing where Eddie Murphy, if he was wanting to be the old Eddie Murphy, he would have just directed it himself. Like,
yeah, right.
He wanted the guy that knew what he was doing, but also was going to listen to everything every Eddie Murphy said.
Yeah.
Like, exactly. It feels like it could be like a Chris McQuarrie thing with Tom Cruise, where Tom Cruise has finally found a director that he's competent, but I'm sure that Tom Cruise gives a lot of notes.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I think he found a director that, like, he doesn't really have to tell him anything. Like, he gets what Tom Cruise wants. You know, so he does it. Yeah, I mean, Eddie Murphy's telling a basically black film with the original Coming to America, and he gets John Landis, a white dude, to come in and direct it. But John Landis was proven. He was a good comedy director. He could rein in the whole story. It didn't matter if he was white or black, at least to Eddie Murphy's mind, I'm thinking. And he kind of does the same thing with this movie. But in this era, it turned people off. From what I've read, a lot of people were turned off by it because they're like, what does this white guy know about the black experience, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I mean, I hear that. But at the same time, I'm not going to tell Eddie Murphy that he has to get with the times or do things just to make people happy. Like, he's just going to do what the fuck he wants because he's an old-time movie star.
Yep, Eddie Murphy's going to do exactly what he wants.
Yeah.
Worth noting with this movie, the original screenwriters from the first movie wrote this movie too.
Yeah.
So yeah, we get this prince in Africa, and we're doing the reverse fish out of water where everything is cool. I was worried for at least a half hour that they were going to try and exploit the naivety of Akeem.
Naivety?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Lack of street smarts. Yeah. But I'm glad they didn't. I'm glad that they had Jermaine Fowler play just a great guy. And I like the scene where he teams up with the sister to take the lion whiskers.
Yeah. Because, they're half brother, half sister. So they felt a connection there. She wasn't she didn't want to be a total jerk to him. And she also knew her place, I guess, which is a monarchy thing. Like, she was like, well, if this is the way the king wants it to be, I guess I'll step aside to allow you to be ruler, even though I don't like
which
it.
is a very rulerly thing to do. Yeah. That shows a lot of,
yeah.
So, yeah, they do all those things to prove that he could be a prince, that he has trials. Yep. And the second thing...
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just second thing is where he has to... where he has to put his penis into a block and be circumcised by the witch doctor. So stupid, but when they hold up Eddie Murphy's foreskin, I couldn't help but laugh. It's such an immature,
they had
simple
all the
thing.
King's foreskins, right?
Yeah,
they had all the foreskins. I know.
Eddie Murphy's was like 3 times as big. And so Eddie Murphy, they quickly cut to Eddie Murphy, and he like kind of turns his head and smiles. Like,
that's pretty funny.
And then it cuts to the 2 women, and they both look at each other and smile. It was adorable.
Oh, the other thing, I mean, they brought everybody back. Like, there's a lot of, even after all those years, the girl who played Lisa, she's back she's been, as princess the whole time, and I guess she's queen now. I don't know if it works
she looked
that way
great
in a monarchy. Yeah, she looked great. And then they even brought Louis Anderson back, who worked at McDowell's back in the 80s. He better be manager now if he moved to Zamunda when they opened a McDowell's in Zamunda, which I thought was funny. That was a nice touch as well. He better be the manager. I mean, he can't just be working that shitty job for the past 33 years or however long it's been. That'd be
Eddie
really
Murphy was just quoted. Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall were just quoted as saying that they basically had to put him in the movie because the studio was upset that there were no white people in it.
Still, really? After all this time?
No, the first movie.
Oh, the first movie. Okay.
In the first movie,
the new one.
They basically gave him a list of 3 people, and they were like, "Yeah, we know Louis. We'll work with Louis." And
that's funny. Ugh, yeah, Jesus. But he's good. I mean, I like Louis Anderson in the first one, and I've always liked Louis. And so I mean, he's just there as a cameo. Same with the dad. Yeah. I mean, they do give John Amos a scene in order to try to give some fatherly advice to Akeem later on, but it's not too big of a deal.
I'm really mad that John Stamos stole John Amos's name. Like, it's such a stupid joke that I've had in my head.
Stupid joke. I never put it together to this moment. Thank you. What else happens? So, yeah. Lavelle, who is the son, he ends up getting a real connection with his hairdresser, right?
Yes.
And I don't recall her name. But it's clearly going in that way where he's supposed to marry the daughter of Wesley Snipes, is Nextdoria ruler, his daughter, in order to join the families and make everything kosher. And though she's hot and he's all into that, he's like, I don't really feel a connection. And she turns out to be a similar kind of setup marriage as Akeem had in the original, which I kind of saw that coming. Yeah. So he just wants to marry the girl he likes. Although I don't think they should get married. I mean, they barely know each other. So he then goes, this is where the movie got weird for me, is that he's like, forget this, I'm going back to America. And he takes her with him, the stylist. And she's fine with that?
Yeah, it's just that unearned love in reverse.
Yeah, and his mom, Leslie Jones, who thought it was amazing that he was a prince now and he's going to be royalty, she's fine too. Like, she didn't try to stop him at all. She was just like, what are you talking about? We can't leave this. This place is awesome. You got to go. And he brings Tracy Morgan too, his uncle. He gets him in Zamunda. And they all are just okay with going back. I don't know.
Yeah.
That just felt weird to me.
It's really the only part of both of these movies that I think are weak, is that It's just not totally believable, but if you just kind of ignore it and go with it, it's fine.
The weakest part of both movies is that there's not a lot of story to wrap up. That's the thing. Like, there's a clear goal in mind for both of these characters, both sons in these movies, but it's a little too simple to wrap up, so they have to throw a wrench in there in order to get into the third act. Like, say, oh, there's a problem, how are they going to solve it? But it doesn't feel earned, as you say. It just feels like, for the sake of storytelling, they have to be like, well, let's make him angry about this, so we send him back in the second one. But you're like, okay. And then, so what happens? Like, Akeem comes to America at the end to convince his son, we've changed.
Where they're about to get married to by the preacher.
Yeah, because that seems like a good idea. The sexist, racist preacher.
He comes to realize the mistake that he's been making, which is he's been trying to do everything like his dad, and nothing is changing.
Akeem is realizing this. Yeah.
Yep. And so he sits down and he lets them get married, but she stops it because she wants to get married in Zamunda.
Yep.
And so we go back and they get married.
It just felt very pointless.
Yeah. There's in there somewhere, there's a conversation about when you're young and you think you can change the world, and when you're old you realize you haven't. There's that. It's like a reflection on your life that we're watching Eddie Murphy have on his life.
And you maybe try to have your kids pick up the slack of what you felt your failure was. Maybe that's a bigger message as well, and you realize that they have to live their own lives, and you have to step back. And also, what was another big part? It just occurred to me. Oh, so in order to be forward thinking, Akeem realizes that my son should not be the ruler of Zamunda. He would be more happy being an ambassador to America. So that way him and his new wife can travel to and fro. But it sounds like they would live in New York, because that's where you'd be an ambassador of. So you'd be in America. And he allows his daughter, who has trained her whole life to be the new ruler of Zamunda, to actually be ruler of Zamunda upon Akeem's death someday.
Yeah, and that part was really cool.
Yeah, so he brings it into the Wakanda future that Zamunda has always strived to be. So they're getting there. And that's pretty much it, isn't it? I mean, you got to see some of the people. They go back to the barbershop. He gets to play his barber role. He gets to play his old Jewish guy role again. We have some laughs. We get the Soul Glow song for a little bit. The preacher comes back. Funny stuff happens. Does the movie need to exist? I think that's like when I read reviews of it, that's just what everybody's on. Like, there's no reason for this movie to exist. There's no reason. It's just a point. It's just a pain in the ass, to watch this movie because it shouldn't exist and blah blah blah. But I'm like, whatever. It doesn't bother me when they bring back late time. We've talked about a lot of late sequels in this podcast so far.
And we're talking about John Landis a lot, which is weird.
Yeah.
This movie passes all of our old sequel tests from when we were first starting the podcast. Like, a movie doesn't have to have a reason to be a movie, does it? Like,
I don't think so.
It's a movie. Just enjoy it.
If it's entertaining and people like it, then I'm all for it. And it I guess for this kind of movie, it doesn't insult the first one. I think that's what's good. It modernizes things, and it made it enjoyable again.
It absolutely complements it.
Oh, and a big plus, the women in this movie are just like drop dead gorgeous. Like, it's just ridiculous the amount of gorgeous women that are in the sequel for this movie. And they do a great job with all the choreography and the dance and the set design and the colors. And I mean, it really takes the first movie, mixes it with Black Panther for that Afrofuturism, and really makes it shine in this little comedy on Amazon Prime. So I thought they did a great job. That's my big plus for the movie.
Yeah. Like,
looks
this
good,
movie
and the people
started
look good.
slow for me. I actually had to watch it. I watched it once and I didn't really like it that much, and so I kind of started watching it again halfway through, and then it really took over and I liked it a lot. Yeah. Overall,
that's all
I would recommend this movie. Go watch it on Amazon. Our future overlords.
Yep. I can't believe
they just bought MGM. Yeah. I'm very excited.
How do you say no to these companies? I mean, we have these companies like Amazon that are worth they can buy they could buy the moon. They're like, hey, we're going to buy the moon. Does anybody got enough money to stop us? No, I'm going to buy the moon.
There's a really good episode on Amazon Prime. We've talked about this before, I think. The Philip K. Dick short story show.
Yeah, Electric Dreams. I
Did you
should
watch
that.
those?
I haven't seen that yet.
They're good enough where you should absolutely do it, and they're just
Okay.
it's not, or it's episodic, so you could just
Okay.
pick an episode and watch.
Right.
But the one that's really good is the one where the evil company that runs everything has caused the end of the world, and
There
the
you go.
surviving humans battle robots that the company created, and there's constant deliveries. Like the warehouse is still working because it's automated,
Oh yeah. We did talk about this. Yeah.
and so the
'Cause I was
delivery
just-
drones constantly
saying,
come
'cause-
and drop
'cause-
off like shirts and shoes to nobody.
Like Phil
It's-
Dick and Richard Matheson and Ray Bradbury. Like they all just knew. They all just could see the future, the way things were going. That what they wrote in the 1940s and 50s, they just were like, this is where our world's going to head in 100 years. They just knew it.
It's insane the stuff that they thought of and how close
Yeah.
we are to a lot of it.
And how much did they buy MGM for? Like $9 billion?
Yeah, it wasn't a ton.
That just fell out of Bezos' pocket when he got out of his car. Like
Yeah.
his
Like
pocket
they've
change
bought
for
more
him.
expensive things. Yeah.
Oh my god.
But honestly, I'm okay with our bleak future because that means hopefully that soon I will be able to watch my MGM purchased movies on Movies Anywhere.
Well, there you go.
Because right now they're
As long
one
as
of
they
like
make good
3
entertainment
studios.
for us to slowly slide into our hell, then that's fine. We might as well enjoy the ride.
Are you a James Bond guy?
Sure.
Like I never really cared about that franchise, but that's the biggest piece of that MGM buy, and
Yeah, I could see that.
MGM only owns 50% of the rights. The other 50% of the rights are controlled by a family that
Yeah, the Braccolis.
have complete creative control
Yep.
over the movies and who gets to be James Bond. And so that's interesting. Like MGM and Amazon get no say.
Yeah, every time you watch a James Bond movie, my kids, if they happen to see it, they go like broccoli because it's Albert Broccoli, but it's broccoli. That's how you say their name. And now I believe he died, so his daughter is the one who's in charge.
Yeah, I got nothing because I've never really cared about James Bond. I'm sorry.
I mean, my dad was a huge Roger Moore James Bond fan, which is everybody's least favorite, pretty much. But, he had some fun movies. It was the goofy 70s, 80s movies. So I grew up watching the Roger Moore ones, but then I'd gotten the Sean Connery ones, and and he made like eight or so. And maybe I'd like 3 or 4 of those. So those are really good, the early 60 ones. And yeah, I mean, Daniel Craig, those are fun. So then I definitely I watched the Pierce Brosnan ones, and those were just a little out there. But I liked them for what they were.
I
But
only
the
really
Daniel
remember
Craig ones are really
GoldenEye.
good. They brought us back. That was the best Brosnan one for sure. What's your favorite James Bond out of the ones you've seen? Do you know?
Casino Royale.
Oh, there you go. Yeah,
Yeah. The first Daniel Craig
I might
is
say the
good.
similar. Yeah,
And I mean, I like the
trying to
way they're
think of another
structuring those movies, but I haven't watched any of them since. Like
yeah.
they're just so, is it dark? Is that the right word? Like-
I don't know. I mean, they tried to lighten it up in the 4th one, but they did the Spider-Man 3 turn in the 4th.
He has an evil alien suit?
No, but they retconned They retconned Casino Royale to fit all those movies together. So the villain of the 4th movie was actually the one that was controlling everything from Casino Royale through Quantum of Solace and Skyfall, and it did not work. You know what I mean? That Spider-Man 3 turn, how they made Sandman responsible for his uncle's death. Yeah, that's what they did in the Spectre movie, and it felt it felt bad. Like the same feeling where like, no, you can't do that.
They did that in Scream 4 or Scream 3,
Right. Why did they do that?
where there was a guy controlling the 2 kids for whatever reason.
Yeah. So they've been known to do this when it comes to 3rd or 4th installments, and it's usually to the detriment of the franchise.
Yeah.
So the 4th one wasn't that great. So now they made this 5th one, which has probably been done for a year and a half. So maybe that'll correct it a little bit and try to get it back on the rails a little. I don't know.
I've got 2 things.
Sure.
And then we should wrap it up.
Yeah, we gotta get it.
Did you watch MODOK yet?
No, I haven't seen any of that. Isn't that on like Hulu or something?
Yeah, that's pretty adorable. And that's just a Marvel property that's just very clearly not in the Marvel universe, and everybody's cool with it. It's fun. The writing is
Oswalt.
yeah.
Yeah,
And I'm
I gotta
growing to
watch-
like him
I've-
more.
I like him. I'm a little Patton Oswalt out. Like he's in everything.
Is he?
I just see him and hear him all. Yeah. Oh yeah. I gotta take a break.
And a sequel reboot that I just watched that I absolutely loved and didn't think I would. Vacation.
Yeah, I saw your tweets about that. I thought that was just a bunch of shit. I did
Oh my God, I fucking
it at all.
You watched it?
Yeah,
like,
but maybe a couple years ago. Like I don't recall much of it. I did not enjoy it though.
I just laughed so much.
Maybe I'll have
like
to catch it again. I don't know.
Maybe it was watching the original very closely to Vacation, but they tried really hard to capture that same zany magic as the original, and they did it. Like Ed Helms is really close to the character of Chevy Chase in that first movie. Like just the optimism and the joy, and then like just the shit that everybody else is getting into while we watch him just try to stay optimistic. It's fun. I loved it.
See, the interesting thing about the original Vacation is that I always just thought of it as a classic a family comedy, and I always enjoyed it. And then I read an article that somebody was just like, it hasn't aged well. And when you look back at the original Vacation, Chevy Chase is just a bad person, and he's just a dick. And it destroys the feeling of the movie. So I hear like you talk about him as being optimistic and positive, and like I think that's what they're trying to say, like Ramis kind of pulled that over on you, but he's actually a horrible person, and it's a very dark movie, and it's not as good as people think it is. But I don't necessarily agree with that. I still think it's very funny, but it made me rethink, like, is he just an awful person?
It's really fun to watch because there is, and I don't know if this is just my reading of the movie, but he projects as this happy, optimistic person. Yeah. But then this movie there's constantly a red car with a beautiful woman that he sees. Mm-hmm. And I believe the woman in the red car is supposed to be his longing for a different life.
Yes.
And him imagining like being not with a family, just with this beautiful woman and being on vacation. And he sees her constantly. Yeah. And so like,
and on the surface, that's like funny, but there's that underlying darkness to it that he actually wishes his family didn't exist.
Yes. Yes, this is exactly right.
That's dark.
Vacation touches on this. Because while they're driving, Ed Helms has this woman in a red car drive by and start flirting with him just the same exact way. Yeah. But then immediately she's hit by a truck and we never see her again. Because Ed Helms,
I don't remember that, but that is funny.
They're trying to say is that Ed Helms is genuinely happy, and like when he has
they're correcting maybe that darkness. Yeah.
I don't know. Like it was just fun.
Yeah, that's weird. All right.
I think it's a sequel they put a lot of thought into, whether or not that hit with the audiences.
Yeah,
like I laughed out loud.
To disappear from anybody's knowledge or anybody's memory, so
maybe it is really gone.
Connect.
Everybody should go watch Vacation starring Ed Helms and Christina Applegate, who I don't usually like, but she's very good in this movie.
You don't like her? Oh, she's good.
Yeah, she's fine.
There's this Netflix show, Dead to Me. She's in that. She's good. It's a good show. You should check that out. It's a crazy show.
But yeah, that's it. I want you to fade into the music as I read this quote from Eddie Murphy talking about John Landis.
All right, let's do it. Let's hear it.
So thanks, everybody, for listening. We had a tussling confrontation. We didn't come to blows. Personalities didn't mesh. He directed me in Trading Places when I was just starting out as a kid, but he was still treating me like a kid 5 years later during Coming to America. And I hired him to direct the movie. I was going to direct Coming to America myself, but I knew that Landis had just done 3 fucked up pictures in a row and that his career was hanging by a thread after the Twilight Zone trial. I figured the guy was nice to me when I did Trading Places, so I'd give him a shot. I was going to go out of my way to help this guy, and he fucked me over. Now he's got a hit picture on his resume, a movie that makes over $200 million, as opposed to him coming off a couple of fucked up movies, which is where I'd rather see him be right now.